Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting adventure. I'm glad you could join me for this tale, one full of shadows and light. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our future uploads. And now let's get started. In a world woven with magic and legend, there lived a young adventurer named Tony. Unlike most, he wasn't motivated by gold or fame, but by an insatiable thirst for knowledge. He roamed far and wide, seeking the hidden truths of forgotten lands, the kind of tales that old bards sing only under starlit skies. It was during one such night, huddled around a campfire with wandering minstrels, that Tony heard a legend that set his soul aflame. The story went like this: in ages past, somewhere in the heart of the Whisperwood, there existed a place known as the Tower of Shadows. It was said that this mystical tower stood as a nexus between the realms of light and shadow, a place where one could confront their inner darkness and emerge with the blessings of the moon and stars. Intrigued, Tony set out to find this mystical tower, eager to unravel its mysteries. But he soon realized the path to the Whisperwood was fraught with danger. Through towering forests he traveled, where ancient trees whispered secrets in the wind and their leaves rustled like pages turning in an old forgotten book. Every step took him deeper into the embrace of the woods, the air growing cooler, damper, heavy with the scent of moss and loam. Days turned into nights, and still he journeyed on, guided by the silvery thread of the moonlight weaving its way through the canopy overhead. Just when weariness threatened to consume him, hope would rekindle in the form of a distant shimmering light, and then before him unfolded a sight both eerie and enchanting. He found himself in a silver-misted valley bathed in the ethereal glow of the moon. In the center rose a majestic tower, not of stone or wood, but of shadow and light, its peak seemingly brushing against the stars. As he took a step forward, the tower seemed to hum with an ancient energy. Then suddenly, as if sensing his approach, the gates swung open silently, beckoning him inside. Without hesitation, Tony walked through the entrance. The moment the massive doors shut behind him, however, they vanished, replaced by smooth, featureless walls. He was enveloped in an unsettling stillness broken only by the distant echo of his own heartbeat. And that's when he noticed something strange. His shadow, detached from his body, began to writhe and twist in the faint light filtering through the windows high above. It grew larger, taking on a life of its own. Then, with a speed that belied its size, it tore itself free from the wall and loomed before him. Startled but resolute, Tony drew his sword, its polished surface reflecting the turmoil in his eyes. The shadow loomed closer, coiling and uncoiling like a living serpent. Its touch was freezing cold, sending shivers down Tony's spine. Yet as it brushed against his outstretched blade, he saw not an enemy, but a part of himself, cold, unyielding, and filled with a strange power. For a moment, their gazes locked. Tony's reflection stared back, hollow and emotionless, a void where understanding should have been. Suddenly, the disembodied voice echoed through the chamber. "To move forward, you must face your own heart." Tony hesitated. What did it mean? Was he meant to attack his own shadow? To harm what was his? Confusion battled with curiosity within him. But as he looked at the impassive reflection in his sword, a realization dawned. Perhaps the voice hadn't spoken metaphorically. Maybe it was quite literally his heart that lay before him, his shadow, his darker self. Was he meant to destroy it, to banish the part of himself he'd been running from for so long? Fear gnawed at his resolve, whispering doubts and urging caution. But something in the unwavering gaze of his shadow compelled him forward. With a deep breath, Tony lowered his blade, sheathing it slowly. Was this the answer? To conquer his shadow, not with violence, but with acceptance, understanding? As he looked into his shadow's fathomless depths, a memory flickered. He remembered a time when fear had driven him to run, to hide from the parts of himself he deemed unworthy, burying them deep within. But as he continued to stare into the abyss, he saw not just his past, but the toll it had taken. His shadow, his darker self, had grown, twisting into something powerful, something separate. Yet as he stood there, the truth struck him with the force of a revelation. This was not an other self, but himself, His vulnerabilities, his fears, the parts of his soul he tried so hard to ignore, all reflected back at him. And in that moment, he understood, to move forward, he didn't need to destroy his shadow, but to embrace it, to accept and understand the entirety of himself, the light and the dark. With newfound determination, Tony raised his head, meeting his shadow's gaze directly. Fear was still there, yes, but so were determination, curiosity, and a glimmer of hope. He took a step forward and another until he stood right before his shadow, the embodiment of his hidden self. As he reached out to touch it, the world around him exploded into light. The tower dissolved into a million pieces, each sparkling like a fallen star. And when the brightness subsided, Tony found himself bathed in the soft glow of the moon, standing in the heart of the Whisperwood. But the most remarkable change was within him. Where once there had been a gaping void, there was now a profound sense of peace. Looking down, he saw clutched in his hand a crystal of breathtaking beauty. It pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, seeming to absorb the essence of the moon and stars. It was the Nightfall Crystal, the very heart of the Tower of Shadows. Overcome with emotion, Tony pressed the crystal to his chest, feeling its cool touch a grounding force against his racing heart. It was more than just a prize, it was a symbol of his journey, a reminder of the battle he'd won not by conquering his darkness, but by embracing it. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, Tony knew his adventure was far from over. The Nightfall Crystal thrummed with power, hinting at the many wonders and challenges that lay ahead. With a deep breath, he tucked the crystal away, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that within him burned the light of the moon and stars, a beacon to guide him through the darkest of nights. He set off, following a barely discernible path through the ancient forest, the Nightfall Crystal nestled securely at his belt. The Whisperwood was alive with the music of birds, the rustling of small creatures in the undergrowth, and the murmur of the stream that accompanied him on his journey. The air vibrated with magical energy, whispering promises of adventure and intrigue. After walking for what felt like hours, the trees began to thin, revealing a clearing bathed in sunlight. In the center stood a solitary figure cloaked in deep blue robes. Their face was partially hidden by a hood, but as they turned, Tony saw an ageless visage framed by flowing white hair and kind, knowing eyes. "You seek knowledge," the figure stated, their voice echoing with wisdom. Tony nodded, surprised by the melodious tone that resonated with power. "Why do you seek the answers?" "Because," Tony replied, his voice hushed in reverence, "I believe the world holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. I want to understand the stories etched in the very fabric of this land." "Very well," the robed figure said, stepping aside. "Within these chambers are countless scrolls and tomes containing wisdom accumulated over millennia. Feel free to explore, but heed my warning, knowledge is a double-edged sword. Are you sure you can handle its weight?" Tony met their gaze, his determination unwavering. "I may not know what challenges lie ahead, but I am prepared to face them. So be it," the robed figure said, their eyes twinkling. "Welcome to the Hall of Echoes, seeker of truth. May your journey bring you wisdom and understanding." As Tony stepped into the vast chamber, shelves laden with ancient books and scrolls greeted him, their edges softened by time and wear. The air thrummed with latent power, and the faint whisper of countless voices echoed around him. "Knowledge is a gift," boomed a voice seemingly from everywhere and nowhere, "but beware its burden. For every answer, a new question arises. Are you ready to bear the weight of infinite queries?" Tony turned, seeking the source of the voice, and saw not a physical presence, but a swirling vortex of energy that pulsed with arcane power. It was a nexus of raw magic, a doorway to boundless knowledge. His gaze fell upon a nearby tome, its cover devoid of any markings. Hesitantly, he reached out and pressed his fingers against its worn surface. In an instant, the book burst open, revealing pages filled with swirling script that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. As Tony leaned closer, the words coalesced, forming sentences that danced at the edge of his perception. Each line pulsed with arcane power, threatening to overwhelm. Suddenly, the vortex boomed again. Do not resist the flow. Embrace the torrent of knowledge and let it shape you. Startled by the sudden command, Tony realized he'd been unconsciously blocking himself, holding back in the face of such overwhelming wisdom. Taking a deep breath, he relaxed his stance, allowing the torrent of information to wash over him. As the magical words swirled before his eyes, they didn't merely convey information. They wove themselves into his being, reshaping his understanding of the world. The history of the tower, the nature of the nexus, the very essence of magic itself, all rushed into his mind, threatening to drown him. But instead of panicking, Tony surrendered to the experience. He closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him like waves crashing on a shore. He felt a surge of power, a connection to the very fabric of the universe. And when he opened his eyes, the world around him shimmered with newfound clarity. And that's where we'll leave off for today. What will Tony do with all this newfound knowledge? Will he use it to help others, or will it consume him entirely? And what adventures await him beyond the Hall of Echoes? Only time will tell. We hope you enjoyed today's adventure. If you did, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and leave us a comment below. We love hearing what you have to say, and we always appreciate your feedback. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time for another exciting adventure.